Yeah, thank you, Madhu, for the kind introduction. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this interesting session. So I'll be discussing about topo-guided PRK and collagen cross-linking. So the use of topical riboflavin combined with ultraviolet irradiation in collagen cross-linking has been, well established, and we all know that it halts the progression of keratoconus. However, the surface irregularity remains the same, and patients still complain of, some kind of visual disturbance. They're not totally happy post CXL surgery. So, keeping in mind the time constraint, I'm not going much into the collagen cross-linking. I'll discuss more about the topo-guided procedures. So we know there are two customized approaches for treating irregular astigmatism. So one is the wavefront guided, and the other one is the corneal topography guided treatments. So the wavefront guided treatment was used in the past, but however, now it's not. We don't recommend that much because of the problem of repeatability in these eyes. So again, topography guided excimer laser ablation was introduced originally to treat highly abraded and irregular corneas. And the concept of laser ablation is basically to alter the cornea by treating the anatomical structure rather than the physiological changes that actually happens. And since the procedure is done after removing the epithelium, similar to what we do in PRK, we can, interchange the terms and, call it topo-guided PRK as well, so TPRK. So it's basically a custom ablation treatment and a procedure of limited ablation of the cornea using excimer laser with the aim of regularizing the cornea, improving the quality of vision, and possibly better contact lens fitting as well. So how does it actually work? So as I already told you, it's only done to improve the topography and the corrected distance visual acuity. The refraction is always not predictable. You cannot predict. It is only done to, to give you a good topographic structure of the cornea. So basically what it does is it flattens the cone peak and as well as the broader area away from the cone. So there's a myopic ablation in the cone peak and hyperopic ablation in the periphery. So basically, it causes flattening of the cone and the peripheral area is steepened a bit. And flatter and broader cone distributes the biomechanical strain and may further be enhanced by CXL. So the basic workup will be refraction, as we do in all cases, topography, and the wavefront scans as well. So how do you choose your patient? Patient will be chosen by, with a minimal pre-op thickness of at least 450 microns. Corneas with thinner, less than 450 microns is not advisable. And minimal post-operative thickness should be 400. And desired thickness after the procedure, that's after you remove the corneal epithelium and all that, should be 350 microns. So maximum ablation, again, as we said, it's only attempting to correct the sphere. And we do not correct the whole optical defect in the eye. So maximum ablation should not be more than 50 microns. And the spherical equivalent, again, should be less than 6 diopters. And optical zone, we can choose somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5, though some of them suggest even 5 millimeters. Again, you should choose cases which have mild to moderate grade of keratoconus, definitely a no for very high grade of keratoconus. Thinnest pachymetry should be 450 microns and above. If the patient has poor contact lens fit or is unhappy with glasses or contact lenses, this can be tried. And again, no central scarring of the cornea and no ocular inflammation or other allergic eye diseases. So coming to the planning, we would actually look at a series of scans. So, when we take scans on the topolaser, it will give us a series of scans. Minimum of 4 to 6 scans are being done. And in the scan, again, you would see this, the mean deviation score. So this score should be less than 0.1. And how do you say that, how your machine will actually tell you? I mean, if you have a score of more than 0.1, then that gets negated. So that's how you choose your repeatable scans. Again, this Q value is very important. And if the Q value actually depends on the location of the cone and the keratoconus. Rohit Shetty sir and Narayana Netralia team has come up with, something like a nomogram as to how to alter the Q values. So when when you do TCAT in a patient with a cone in the central zone means when it is within the 3 millimeter zone, there will be a high negative Q value and a high myopic refractive error as well. So for these, what you could do is you could reduce the Q value to a less negative value or apply a partial refractive correction, because we are not bothered about completely correcting the refraction here. We only want to regularize the cornea. So, and you also have to make sure that your thinnest pachymetry is more than 475 microns and spherical equivalent of less than 6 diopters. Again, when you have when your cone is away from the central zone, that is more than 5 millimeters, more than 3 millimeters away, then you need to have you will have a negative Q value, or even a positive Q value is possible. So here you can change your Q to be 0. And coming to the planning, so again, this is how your screen would look for the planning. And the measured sphere might not be that accurate because this is a Placido-based measurement. So we would go more with the sphere that the machine picks up. And we're more concerned about the cylinder here. So what we would do is we would go, and the axis again, there is something that we measure and something that the machine picks up. In these cases, it's always better to go with what the machine tells us. If there is a lot of difference between the two, then we will have to look at the anterior float and see what axis it corresponds to in the steepest region. Again, treatment, when you plan for your treatment and all that. So in this case, you can see the actual refraction was 2.5 with the -3 cylinder at 165-degree axis, but measured was -0.7 with 4.76 at 177 axis. We've gone ahead and treated, and the residual stroma is about 394 microns, and maximum ablation is less than 50 microns as already described. So again, coming to the surgical procedure, as we all know, there is debridement of the corneal epithelium for about 8 millimeters. Laser ablation is performed. Bed is washed, and riboflavin is applied every 2 minutes for 20 minutes, and every 2 minutes during the UVA radiation as well. And patient is then started on topical steroids in tapering doses, and also antibiotics given. So these are some studies that has compared the efficacy of the topo-guided PRK. So they've concluded that same day simultaneous topography guided PRK and collagen cross-linking appears to be superior than sequential PRK. So here they divided about 325 eyes, and they divided the patients into one group undergoing CXL first, and then followed by PRK 6 months later, the sequential group, and the other group was the simultaneous group where it was done on the same day. They concluded that same day was much better. And this is a study showing the safety and efficacy of the topo-guided PRK. So again, here they've concluded that PRK followed by CXL is a promising treatment. So to conclude, patient selection is very important. You cannot go and choose patients with very high keratoconus. Patients with mild to moderate are really good patients to perform this surgery on. And again, you have to talk to your patients well. You have to tell them what to expect from surgery, because any refractive procedure, they think of only getting good vision, and they're always concerned about the vision. So you have to tell them that this is more to address the aberrations and not to
Did we lose the connection from Dr. Divya?
Yes, I guess there's some technical glitch from her end.
That's okay. I think she just finished her presentation.
Okay.
So thank you, Divya ma'am, for that wonderful